All right, we probably could have been in the class doing our review game today, but I didn't really realize, I didn't understand how bad it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a little bit worse. But anyway, so I wanted to give you a follow-up on the review for the exam that's going to be open on Friday, and then I'll give you a little bit more information on the actual exam and how it works and that kind of stuff. If you're so what you'll see here is this is the PowerPoint that I was going to use. I've adjusted it a little bit. I had more gaps and more fun stuff in there for our class stuff, but I really just wanted to go through and kind of give you a little bit of context to each of the questions that I have on here. And so the first grouping here, let me start this. The first couple groupings were about the treatment modalities. So it just really goes through, really all those sections that I told you on the other video are going to be important, like all the contraindications, when you get into all the different types of applications. I asked you to look at the advantages, disadvantages. As you go through these, yes, you want to look at the advantages of, say, ice massage and all of them, but also look at the disadvantages, because just, again, this should just be a study guide to go, okay, yeah, I got to remind myself to go look at the advantages, disadvantages, and like the whirlpool stuff, the things that I point out to you. Look at the theories of pain reduction. Look at, this is one of the areas that I told you to focus on, was how do the analgesic stuff work, and that gait control and that kind of stuff. Speaking of gait control, making sure you know those kind of things. So in that treatment modalities section, just, if you go back, we didn't have a quiz on that, so go back and these are some high points, but you go back and look at all the different hot and cold and what they do. Do they increase? Do they decrease? Make sure you have all that information in the old noggin. I left the bonus questions in here because I think they're fun. So I asked you, I was going to ask as a bonus, how many rows are on the American flag? 13, because there were 13 colonies in the original. All right, in our round 2, I went into the concussion stuff. This was a big one for us, and so make sure this question is asking about amnesia, but make sure you know all the symptoms and know all the different stuff. Obviously, the quizzes will guide you. I asked you about the different coverings of the brain, so yes, you need to know the dura mater and arachnoid, all that kind of stuff. So make sure you have an idea of that. We did talk about CTE. Hopefully, you watched some of those videos on the portal for those. Make sure you know the mechanism, and really the other big thing is that tau protein that I talked about on that. That's what degrades and damages the brain. This is one of the complications of concussions, and so we talked about the different types of bleeding. This is the epidural one, but we also talked about subdural and the intracerebral. So make sure you know those and have a good understanding of what that is. And then, of course, I showed you the video on second impact syndrome, and make sure you have an idea of what that is and how catastrophic that can be and that kind of stuff, and how that plays out. Another fun bonus, Mount Rushmore. I got to get my face out of Abe Lincoln over there. That would be, I did it this way. It's in South Dakota. It's right over here. I'm not covering it up. That. Then I went into the muscles and the bones and the things that we talked about. We started at the knee. We did a little bit of hip, and then we went into the shoulder, elbow, wrist, hand. So we got a lot of anatomy that you guys can look at. It's not all going to be represented here. So when I talk about this first question, obviously is specific to the rotator cuff. What does it do? What does this muscle do? Make sure you look at all the muscles that we've talked about and know their action. That's a big one. I will ask you questions on the muscles. This is a question that specifically is targeted to injuries, like those extra injuries that we talked about. Make sure that you go through those injuries and know, number one, what they are, just the basics that we went over, like how do they form, what kind of things, what causes it, how do you prevent it, those kind of things. Make sure you have an idea of that. The joints, right? So I've asked you about specific joints. If I ever got specific, like with the wrist, make sure you have an idea of what that is. And then we definitely talked about the different forces that that are out there, and what ligaments are going to prevent varus and valgus. That's a big one. You need to know those, and then the way that certain ligaments and things are injured. This was a question from the quiz, but I also asked you about the ACL, making sure you know what does the ACL do. The MCL, LCL, you need to make sure what those do as well. The final bonus question there was the 4 corner states. Get my face out of there because it's that's actually a place where you can just step from place to place. Kind of cool. The final round of my game was all identification. So let me just get my face out of here. And so really I had a number of different questions that we were going to go through, but I just put all the little markers onto one slide for you, and so you can kind of go through and make sure that you can identify all of these on the shoulder, on the knee, and then on the wrist and hand. I didn't get the elbow in there, but I think you'll be okay. Then as I quickly go back to the portal here, this is our exam 2 materials. This ACL reconstruction that I'm covering up, you really don't need to. That's just for some interesting stuff. This is the stuff that will be on the test, so you should watch that video on CTE and make sure you know it. And then obviously all of the handouts that are here, and then there are some video lectures. Some of these video lectures, we didn't go over the stuff in class, like treatment modalities. I think the wrist and hand was another one that I asked you to watch, and then we just kind of breeze through it. So make sure you get the notes from those, or if you need extra notes, you can go back and see what I was talking about there. The hip is extra. We didn't, in fact, the hip we went over in class, but I just gave you a run through the book. The final thing that I was going to go over is the coursework, where you're going to find your exam. So you might have your first exam is going to be here. You'll just see this under the coursework tab. You'll just click on that, and when it's open, you'll be able to start it, and you'll have the 50 minutes. I'm going to open it at 8:30. I think that's what, if you saw that, it opens at 8:30, but you only have 50 minutes to complete it. It will close at 9:50. So you have to make sure that you close it, or that you are done by 9:50, or it'll kick you out. So that's how I'm going to run the test. Make sure that you realize if you leave the test window, then you're going to get kicked out. And if you try to email me and say, "Hey, I got kicked out. What do I do?" I'm going to be able to see why you got kicked out. So don't do that. If you have internet problems, hopefully you get to a place where you have decent internet and you don't have any of those problems. But if you have some internet problems or you have issues, just email me. I'll be Friday. I'll be around, and so I'll be able to assist you via email or something like that. So if you have any questions between now and then, we can Zoom. You can come by the clinic or the lab and talk to me.